Well, hello everybody. Welcome to the stream. Uh, Looks like we are connected to everything. I'm not going to do an audio check this time around, but I also want to let everybody know that thanks to somebody mentioning it last time, we are streaming at 1080p this time. So if anybody can check that and verify it, that would be great if you know how to do it. If not, that's fine. We will check on it ourselves. And also, I just want to make sure that the sound check is okay. And looks like we're connected to all three services, so we should be good to go. Audio volume, I'm looking here, and it's pretty good as well. So I think we're ready to go. All right, so just real quick, what we're doing here, this is episode 2 of season 4 of my stream on Pixologic ZBrush Live. And we are making a mech. So this is where we got to last time. Also, here is my reference for it. So we went through all this last time. I added a new section this time, which is Ambulation. And we'll talk a little bit about this. And the thing that really resembles this mech in real life is an ostrich. So I've got some images here of an ostrich running. So we're going to try and do some of those poses today, just to get an idea if this thing is feasible. And so yeah, we can go ahead and get started. So real quick before we get going here, if you guys can please let me know if you can hear me okay. That would be awesome. So we're streaming it on 3 services: Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. So if somebody from each service can, in the chat, type whether or not you can see and hear me okay, we can go ahead and get going. All right, so I'm just going to start. I guess there's a little bit of a delay, so if you guys chime in, I will keep an eye on the chat. And also, since you guys are with me live, it looks like there's a few people on. You may ask any question that you want. Every once in a while, I'll stop and answer them for you. All right, so here we are, all the different subtools. As you recall, last time we created this from Zizu, where we basically took a velociraptor and used some of the Z-sphere capabilities to generate this kind of framework. And then we kind of narrowed it down to what we have now, which is basically this. Okay, so since then, since the last time we talked, I did a couple of things. One of them is I made this to half scale, and to do that I use the Z plugin Scale Master, which is really nice. So here, if I go there under Scale Master, you can see if I can go ahead and click on sliders to subtool size, you can see here that it is going to show me all this information here, and it's basically just 100, which means it's 100% of what I'm seeing. But if I want to actually set the scene scale, I can click on this, and here are the different scales I can set it to. So let's go ahead and start at about this right now. I don't know why this didn't retain it, but it's good thing because I can do it over here. All right, so what I'm going to do here is set the scene scale. So here it is saying that my height is 6 feet tall, and it's not. So the way I'm going to set the scale is actually, since I don't actually have a object that's this size, what I've done is I've actually introduced some people. So before I do that, let me go ahead and bring these guys up. So I've got a mech pilot here, and let me turn off polyframe so you can see better. So I just have a mech pilot. This is a project I'm working on independent of this one. It is so there's the guy, and I also have him in a sitting pose, and in the sitting pose you can see that he also has some padding. If you're sitting down in a mech, you're kind of probably going to get banged around, so he does have some kind of protective gear on him as well. So so these are basically, you know, here's the guy standing up, here's the guy sitting down, and I basically use these to bring them into my scene. So here I've got the people in the scene. So I've got 3 pilots for the mech, and let me hide all these other ones. We'll talk about these in a bit. So I've got 3 pilots sitting in the mech, and if I turn transparency on, you can kind of see how they are sitting in there. So there's a guy in the middle, there's a guy kind of off to the side, and then there's a guy back here. So this guy's the driver, this guy's the gunner, and this guy would be like a commander or something like that. Okay, and so this guy's head is poking out a bit, which is fine. I just basically roughly put them in here. I can always move them around if I need to. But more importantly than that, so it's always kind of good to see what's going on inside your vehicles when you're designing them. But I also have a guy standing on top, right? So this guy over here is standing on top of the mech. So that kind of also gives me an idea of scale. So here I'll just kind of move him a little bit. So he's standing right on top of the mech, right? So that kind of gives me an idea of how big this thing is. And also, to understand how tall it is, I have a bunch of these guys. Well, let me actually put the guy on the ground. So this is what a guy would look like on the ground, right? So this is the guy on the ground, and if I turn perspective off, you can kind of tell that this is how big the guy is, and this is how big the mech is, right? So it's pretty big. You know, it's basically maybe 2 or 3 car sizes wide. And last but not least, I also stack the people up. Right, so here are the people stacked up. So let me hide the guy in the front. And here are a bunch of these guys stacked up like so. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4 people tall, this thing, about, you know, at the base of it. Right, so if I continue to add these people on, and it's just pretty easy to do that. Here, I'll just duplicate one of these guys right here. And I can move him up, right? So now he's there. And to kind of get an idea of the size, I just need one of the dimensions. So I'm just going to go for the height. So there is that. So the height is about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people, right? And if one of these guys is about maybe 7 feet tall or 8 feet tall, so that's basically 6 of these times 8. So the number I need to type in here would be 48 for feet, right? So let me check a couple of things here real quick. All right, so the chat is pretty unchatty. If you guys can hear me, can somebody just chime in and just type something so we have an idea of whether or not you guys can hear me and see everything okay. All right, so we get quite a few people, so please do type. And let's move these guys and stack them on top of the other ones. As a matter of fact, let me kind of juxtapose these so they're kind of one on top of the other. And then what we'll do here is just merge these two together. So this one, there's looks like these 2 guys, and then there's the other one. So here we'll just merge this down. And also these pilots here, they're not really taking up a lot of room because what I've done is I've decimated them, or I don't even know if I decimated them, but I basically did a thing where I have them at kind of, you know, relatively low resolution, so they're not taking up too much space. All right, so here we go. There is that. So that's going to be about 48 feet tall, right? So if each guy is about 8 feet and there's 6 of them, okay, so I can type in 48 here, but I think that's going to throw it off. So I'm going to go for half. I'm going to go to 24 feet. Okay, so then it adjusts all these automatically for me as well. So now what I could do is just click on Resize Subtool, and it will resize them for me and do all that stuff. So I'm not really going to worry about that just yet. I'll do it later on. But right now I just want to get an idea of how big this thing is, just to kind of for my own kind of understanding of the scale of things. So I'll leave the pilots on for now, and I'll leave this guy on the ground, and not the guy on the roof, but this one on the ground. And we'll hide all the other ones. All right. So this is kind of what we're going to start out with. And for the most part, I've got the primary shapes ironed out here. I don't really need to worry about it. Okay, cool. So it looks like YouTube is hearing me fine. I'm assuming Facebook and Twitch are fine too. If you guys are on Twitch or Facebook and you're watching me there, just chime in. All right, so now that we have this kind of going, I think the primary shapes pretty much are okay. And I'm going to look at some variants here. I did some playing around where I separated this out into 3 different shapes. I went up and created this one right here. And just to show you, this is all really low poly geometry, and this is really how I do a lot of the work when I'm kind of doing just concepting. I don't want it to be too heavy, so basically I just took these a bunch of boxes and put them together like this, and then start playing around. So here I'm doing the same exact thing. So actually, let me create a copy of that. So I have the original just in case I need it. And then I start just moving these kind of, polygons around. Again, it's very low poly, and I'm trying to get, let me extend out the silhouette a bit. I'm just trying to get interesting silhouette. So I kind of thought this would be an interesting look here. And I started kind of moving things around. Again, just it's a few polygons that or a few cubes that are basically stretched out. Maybe this one has 1 extrusion. Now I'm just kind of trying to see if there is different looks that I like more on this mech. And again, all I'm doing here is looking at the silhouette. So is it more interesting with this on? Let me go back to the subtool. Is it more interesting this way or more interesting this way? So you can kind of go and try out some different looks. And again, all we're looking for here is basically just an A-line for the top of the mech, and also some interesting visual aspects that I can add to it later on. Now what I'm going to do here is switch over to the clip curve, and I can use the clip curve also to just kind of maybe edit this down a bit if I want to, maybe edit this top down and whatnot. Okay, so all right. So I don't really have anybody from YouTube or Twitch chiming in. I do show all 3 services running, so I'm hoping that either they are shy or that it's working. All right, so it's interesting kind of to get this little bit of a scoop here. Let's see if that works. Maybe not. Let's see if we can just bring this back down. I kind of like this kind of aerodynamic look. Although it's not really going to matter that much because this is going to be just a big lumbering kind of machine anyway. Now one of the things I can also do here is I'm going to turn on topological, and if I turn on topological, then it will I can just adjust these cubes individually. So I'm not really tweaking all the other ones. So here it's just basically kind of trial and error, trying some different shapes to see how it looks. And whatnot. If you can just excuse me for 1 second, I think I have somebody letting me know how things are from a streaming perspective. Okay, so hang on. Just had somebody send me kind of an important message. Okay, so looks like well, YouTube is looking good, Sinak. So the YouTube folks are okay, and it looks like you are on Twitch. And okay, all right. YouTube still says waiting, but I do have some people on YouTube that says they can hear me and see me fine. All right. So again, if folks on YouTube, Dario and Akuma, if you guys can see me, still see me and everything is good, can you still chime in one more time, please? Oh, okay. So Sinek is kind of saying he didn't know. Okay, so I think we're good, and all that's left is Facebook, and I think Facebook has a bit of a delay, so maybe when somebody gets on Facebook, then just let me know. All right, and another thing I can do here is turn transparency on so I can see what's going on inside. Let's move these over a bit. So here, just basically just manipulating a cube. And by the way, if you are in transparent mode and you can't manipulate the stuff inside, you have to be in ghost mode to do that. So transparent and ghost, they're right under each other. And now that I'm in ghost mode, I can actually move these parts that are inside as well, right? So here I'm just basically going over and checking out what this would look like, checking out my silhouette. I kind of don't like this big domey part in the front, so I'm going to kind of tone that down a bit. And I'm kind of getting more and more closer to the shape I had before, but maybe just a little tiny bit taller, and also with some kind of detail on top. All right, so you know, a lot of people when I go through my process say, well, you know, this is kind of a waste of time. Or it's taking too long and whatnot. And I'd like to point out that actually this is going to save you time in the end, the more time you spend here, because the closer you get to kind of your overall shape that you want, the better it is, so that you don't like start modeling and do a lot of detailed work and then get to a point where you're like, oh man, this doesn't work, and then have to start all over again. And I've seen a lot of that happen, where people have to go back to the drawing board, so to speak, and redesign something because their design isn't working, and it's kind of primary shapes that are not working, so they have to do it all over again. A lot of my students sometimes have that problem, and sometimes my friends or people that I have crit groups with, they have those issues as well. All right, so it's getting pretty good here. Now, you know, it's pretty simple. Now I can just do a couple of things here. I can just go in and maybe add one more edge loop here to this one. I think I added one, but not where I wanted it. Like add one in the middle here, and let's add one to here as well. So that just basically gives me more points to play with. And again, I just want to keep this very simple still. And all I'm doing here is using ZModeler to insert an edge loop, and then just using the good old move tool with topological on so that I can manipulate these ones individually. All right, and let's see. I'll turn transparent off for a minute, and I'm going to also turn off polyframe so I can see this as an object. And of course, I'm always looking at the silhouette over here. I can make that a little bit bigger so I can get what I'm looking for. All right, so I don't know if these are going to be separate parts yet, but it is going to have this general shape. So I can maybe at some point maybe dynamesh these together or something like that just to get. All right, so this silhouette is looking a little bit better. I wanted to give it a sleeker nose, and the reason why I'm doing that is because if this thing gets hit, the angle that it's at will help deflect whatever is hitting it. I'll probably have some chubum armor, something that kind of will explode and push it away as well. All right, so I think, you know, that's looking okay for now. So yeah, so this is one variation, right? And then there was that initial one that we did also, which kind of looks neat. I think this is a good one as well. So we can, you know, we can keep these around and see which one we warm up to as time goes on. Let's see, what's this part right here? Right. Okay, so this is just another extra part here that I had just in case we needed to do some stuff with, but I don't need it. So get rid of it. It's always good to get rid of stuff as you are putting things together. Here's another piece in the front, which I'm also going to delete. Right, so we have one, you know, variation this way and another variation this way. So this is one variation here, and with this off, oops. let me do this again. So this is one variant, right? So we have one that looks like this. Switch, and then we have another one that looks like this. Right? So let's see if I can go back to this. Yep. So one of them looks like this, one of them looks like that. And I can kind of put them next to each other to figure, okay, well, maybe there could be two different variants. They're the same size. I'm just kind of matching more or less what the size is. And sometimes I do a whole bunch of these to get a variety of them. So a lot of times also when I do this process, I do it in Oculus, in VR. And I should just mention that I do have a more comprehensive tutorial. So if you go to the Gnomon Workshop, there is, so Gnomon Workshop is just the Gnomon Workshop spelled like this, Gnomon Workshop. And if you go there, you can go in and I think you can, there's a free trial as well. But if you go to Browse by Instructor, you can find me under the Ks. There I am. And I do have a very long and comprehensive mech design tutorial. And I do go through the beginning part here and do the sketching in Oculus Medium. And then after I'm done with that, I basically come up with a kind of a grid of all the different types of mechs. So to show you that, I actually need to go to my Instagram, which I can get to from my homepage. So kermaco.com is my website. And if you click on the Instagram icon here, you can go to Instagram. And in my Instagram, if you scroll down here's the example. So here, these are all sculpted in Oculus Medium. And these are ones that I do pretty quickly. They take about anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes each. And then I have all these different variants. And then I lay them out in ZBrush like this as a grid so that an art director can go, well, I like C1. So this would be C1, the big one over here. But I think we're going to go with A2. So then there's this one right here. And then they can easily pick one from the list. So that's kind of a similar thing to what I'm doing over here. Oh, by the way, if you guys are interested in that workshop, so again, it's in the Gnomon Workshop, and if you browse by instructor, again under my name, which is Kermanikian, by instructor, which is right here between I and L, right there. I've got two tutorials. One of them is on photogrammetry scanning, and then there's this one, which is designing the combat mech. And if you go to this one, you can subscribe to this. You can try it out and subscribe to it. And there's a bunch of videos, 19 videos of me going through the entire process of designing this mech. So if you are interested in what's going on here, but you're having a little bit of a hard time catching up, that would be a good idea for you to kind of maybe get that tutorial. And also, I should note that this is, let me clear that other mech. This is, a bit more advanced. So, if you're just starting out in ZBrush, maybe this would not be a good place for you to start. But maybe, they have a really good introduction to ZBrush tutorial as well. So you can learn a little bit of how to use ZBrush, maybe get your fundamentals down, and then you can follow along the other video. All right, so I'm tweaking this one a bit too. So I've got two different options here. Both of them are really good. And also I could have neither, right? So I can have neither one of these and just go with my original kind of really sleek design that I had before. Maybe just make a few changes to it like this. So the guy's head is not poking out. No, he should poke out. He's actually going to be, there's going to be a hatch here, and he's going to actually be looking outside the hatch, kind of like a tank. All right, so now that that's done, we can continue on to the next stage. And the next stage is I want to get an idea of this thing ambulating, right? So if this is going to be in a game, or it's going to be in a movie or a TV show or whatnot, I need to get some convincing looks of this thing running or doing its thing. So to do that, I had that Z-Sphere rig, which is, let me isolate it so you can see it. I had the Z-Sphere rig before. And I'm going to use this to create some poses for the Mech. So let's go ahead and do that. So once again, I just want to mention that I do have my reference here of how a ostrich is running. So I need to kind of maybe look at some of these, and here's kind of an interesting pose right here, right? And here's another one. So I'm going to try and simulate. Here's one just kind of running, right? So that's kind of what it's going to do. I also want to see what it looks like from the front. So it looks like, you know, it leans one way or another. I looked at some videos too. And of course, here's a MyBridge version as well of all the different positions that it has when it's walking. I don't think it's running here. I think it's walking. That's why these are not as pronounced as maybe this. This looks like it's going really fast, and this looks like it's going super, super fast right here, right? So you can kind of tell from the motion blur that this thing is trucking along. All right, so let's go ahead and do that with these. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to duplicate this a few times, maybe just once for now, and then let's bring everything back. I'm going to hide these legs and just kind of stay on with these legs, right? And now I can choose which one of these top parts I want, maybe this one, or do I want this one? Let's see. Let's just do it with this one for now, okay? So now to make it run, what I'm going to do, since this is a Z-sphere rig, I can actually go ahead and start posing it, right? So let's go ahead and start doing that. So I'm going to go to R to rotate, right? I should be on this guy first, okay? And R to rotate, and then that will just rotate the legs back and forth. Now I've got symmetry on, which I should turn off. And then I'm just going to try and match one of these photos, right? So I'm going to try and match the legs on one of these photos that I have over here. So I'm going to start out with this one, since it's pretty standard looking run. Okay, so for this one, the leg's going to be bent all the way back. Notice that it's kind of rotating this way as well, which is not what I want, but it's fine. And then this one here is going to rotate this way. And if I want to fix this rotation, I can. I just go to R for rotate and rotate it correctly this way, right? So if I really care about it kind of looking right, I can just rotate this Z-sphere to get it to where I want it to be. And then rotate this one out this way, right? So, and then I'm just basically matching that look. So there's that, and then there's this. That's kind of bending it about over a 90-degree angle. And then this one's going back like this, like so. And this one's going back like so, right? So that's the back leg. And then the front leg, it's coming down like this, and then like this, and like that, and like that, right? So there's basically my running pose, my first running pose, maybe just a little bit in the front here. So here it is running. Let's look at it from the front. So it kind of leans over a little bit to the side that is lunging. So it leans this way, and maybe I can do this a little bit with this foot. And bend this forward. Just a little bit of a lean this way, and then bend this forward. Okay, and then do the exact opposite with this one. All right, so there it is kind of running, and here it's just about to put its foot down, or I can actually have it be up even higher, where it's just really booking along like so. And again, I might need to do some adjustments, but for the most part, I am liking this. Being like that. All right, so that's one pose. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going just going to generate a bunch of adaptive skins with all these different leg poses, right? So here I'm just going to scroll down to adaptive skin. There are my adaptive skins. I can click on preview. Of course, this is not what I want. I want to bring the density down to 1, and this is exactly what I want. So I'm going to say make adaptive skin. So what that did is it just basically created an adaptive skin for me, a separate tool over here. That's this. So that's my first pose. Now I'm going to go over back to here, and I'm going to keep this because I might need to make adjustments to it. So I'm just going to add it to a folder here called legs in motion. Okay, so I've got a folder that's going to contain all these. Now I'm going to go back to this one, duplicate it again, and let's just move it down here already. And now I'm going to work on the second one, right? And the second one is going to be another one of these poses. And let me get to the right one here. And this time I'm going to do this pose right here. I'm going to do this one. So with this one, it looks like one leg is bent all the way back. Again, here with the Z-spheres, I'm choosing R for rotate. So this one's kind of all the way back like this. And let me turn symmetry off. And then for the front leg, it's kind of about here, like so. And then this part is bent this way. And then this part is down and this way, right? So it's about doing this. And you can see here that I'm getting some really interesting kind of running positions. So here I also need to make sure I'm getting it from the front. So since this is moving forward, it's lunging forward, it's leaning in that direction. Let me check something here real quick with the reference. It's always good to continue to look at your reference just to kind of get that idea. Actually, I'm wrong. The one that's leaning, this one will be leaning inwards, and so it was right the way it was before, leaning inwards, like so. And this will be useful for riggers later on too, to kind of get the bind poses and whatnot. And then this leg is just kind of going to be more out like this. So this is perfect. So here's another kind of position that it's running. And let's just go down to adaptive skin here. And bring the density to 1 and make adaptive skin. So now I've got another one, right? So I've got, here's another one that I created. So I've got this one, and then I've got this one. So I've got 2 different poses. And let's do one more. Boom TV Nana is saying it's like a rigged model hack. Yeah, kind of, you know. I'm just going to copy these and paste them into one. Well, actually, I'm just going to leave them like this for now. Okay, and then let's go back here. All right, so that's my second pose, and then let's work on the third. And I'm just going to turn the adaptive symmetry off here, turn these legs off, and let's just do one more. And so I'm going to duplicate this, and I'm going to add the original one to my builders folder. So that's kind of where I keep all the things that I start with, just to kind of have them organized. And then let's move this one down, and let's start tweaking it. Let me find another one of these poses here that looks good. And this one right here looks good as well. So here in this one, I have, this leg bent all the way back. Let me make sure this one. Oh. Working on the wrong one. Here we go. Okay, so this leg is bent backwards, and then this one's back this way, and then this one is bent all the way back like so, right? And then the front leg is about at 90 degrees like this, down. This is down like that, right? So here's another one. Again, this would be moving outwards, and this would be moving inwards like this, right? So yeah, it is kind of like rigging, but it's also, so this thing is kind of just running this way. All right, so another, well, let's kind of give this a little bit more of a extra, you know, I mean, if this is bent this much, then maybe we'll do this to it. And again, it's always good to keep looking at your reference just to make sure you get as close to it as possible. And it's always good to look at your composition from 2 angles too. Okay, so this looks good as well. Let's make a third adaptive skin of this one. And then what we're going to do is we're going to make a bunch of these mechs and see what it would look like in a composition where they're all running together and have the different poses. Okay, so there's that. And what we'll do here is adaptive skin, density 1, make adaptive skin. So now I've got 3 of them. And I really don't need to see these ones anymore. So I'm going to hide these and put this folder up here, legs in motion. And now I'm just going to go ahead and create subtools with the 3 different legs, right? So here's this. And I'm just going to copy and paste these legs here. Let me rename this to Z-spheres. See, there's a couple of questions. If you guys could just hold out. So rename. Oh, the folder rename is here. Rename folder and ZSPH, Z-sphere, legs in motion. And then I'm going to go ahead and bring these guys in. So I created these different skins. So I'm just going to go here, copy. And I'm just going to paste them all into one thing here. So Control-A, paste. And so I've got 1, 2, and here's a third one. Did I did generate 3, right? So here's this one right here. So copy this one right here, and then go into this and paste. What I'm using here is my own menus, by the way. So again, I highly recommend everybody who is using ZBrush to make their own menus, right? So I think it's good kind of practice to you know, instead of going with the kind of the generic UI, make your own. And also, a lot of people ask me for my UI, and I usually don't give it out because I change it all the time. So you know, whatever you get will be what you have at that specific time. So it's not really going to help. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do here is I've got the 3 legs. What I'm going to do is go back to my original here and hide all the legs, hide all the people, and all I'm going to show is just this top part, right? And what I'm going to do here with the top part is just merge visible, and that's going to create a subtool for me that just has this top part, which is here. I don't know why these are, just fill everything with that. So this is the kind of the top part, and what I'm going to do here is I'm going to copy that. Actually, yeah, I'm going to copy that and go back to this and paste it here 3 times. And then I'm just going to make 3 different ones of these that have the different legs in place. Okay, so, right, so here I'm just going to merge this one down. So now I've got one mech. Let me just make sure it's all white. And then this one, merge down. Same thing. Okay, and then last but not least, this one. So basically I'm creating 3 different versions of these mechs. So what I'm going to do here is just merge this one down as well and make sure it's all white as well. So now I've got basically 3 different mechs, right? So if I solo it, I can just, you know, I have these 3, and I can actually, you know, these look like, you know, kind of, if I just move between the tools, it somewhat looks like an animation. And I don't, you know, these are pretty low res, like they're about 6K polys each, so it's not really that much. And now what I'm going to do next is I'm going to go ahead and I guess I can bring this down a bit. You know, this part isn't really, I don't really like the way this part came out, so I can either, let's go ahead and do it. So I'm just going to inflate it a little bit, inflate, and just inflate this, because I, you know, with legs and things like that, you always should go from thick to thin. So that kind of wasn't working, and it's probably the same with all the other ones. Easy problem to fix. Like so. And last but not least, this one. Nope, we did that one already. This one right here. And all I'm doing is just using the inflate brush. And by the way, you know, when ZBrush did this as a when it created the unified skin, it just basically converted all the Z-sphere stuff into polys, right? So these are just polys. They're still independent of each other. So if I had turned topological on, I could have just done one at a time. But again, all I'm doing this is just for visualization. All right, let's see. There's quite a couple of questions. Poses before you build it out. Are you planning on just overpainting? Mech Rankin, I don't know exactly what your question is. Maybe can you ask it a different way, or can you clarify it, please? And somehow I think the pilots are still in here as well. Let's just make sure. Nope. Good. All right. All right, so now I've got these three different mechs. What I'm going to do here is I'm just going to make them into a nanomesh brush. What happened to this leg here? Let's thicken that back up. So 2, 3, here we go. All right, so here are my three different mechs. And what I'm going to do now is just create a nanomesh brush with them. So go to the brush menu. And in the brush menu, I'm just going to go ahead and create an insert mesh brush, a new one. Okay, and that insert mesh brush is just going to have this mech, and I'm going to go to this next one and say create insert multi-mesh, right? So now there's that one. Maybe I should have done that before. Create insert mesh, append, skip. That's basically telling me that I can. So now if I press M, oh wow, I've got 4 different. Yeah, maybe I don't need that. I just need this one. Okay, so there's one. Oh, yeah, I forget. You know, if you have all your subtools here, if you click on create insert multi-mesh, it just will create the brush for you with all 3 of them in there. Okay, so I've got one brush now, and if I press M here, you can see these are the 3 different variants. And to try it out here, I'm just going to go ahead and create a plane real quick. So different ways of doing this. I'm going to use this one right now, plane 3D. Let's rotate it so it's facing downwards, like so. Okay, and so now I've got this plane. I'm going to make it bigger. And let's turn perspective on, and I'm going to subdivide this just once. Let me see here. Turn smooth off, divide once. Okay, and I'm going to get rid of the lower subdivision level. Okay, so we just have these. And the reason why I did all this is because I want to go to my new brush that I created, this one right here. And notice here that I can just draw on that mech, right? And then if I want to go to another one, I can just go to this other one, draw that one on, go to this one, draw that one on, go to this one, draw this one on, etc. Right? So now I've got all 3 of these mechs kind of in one composition. Now, but I want to go a little bit further with that. So I'm going to take this brush that I have right here that I created. I'm going to create a nanomesh brush with it. Right? So now I've got it here. It doesn't show me the icon, but it is a nanomesh brush. So if I go to ZModeler and go to Insert Nanomesh, and I want to insert one on all polygons, right? So here we go. I'm just going to, whoa. Let's make sure that we have the right brush for our nanomesh. So here it is. So this is basically just putting a cube on there, right? But I don't want the cube. I want a different nanomesh brush, so I want this one instead. Let me do this one more time. Choose that brush, insert nanomesh. Okay, and it should insert, here we go, insert this guy right here. Okay, so, but what I want to do is I want to insert it everywhere. So all polygons, and there it is. So now it's basically creating a whole bunch of these mechs like this. And it's going through the floor. To fix that, I just basically need to lift this up a bit. And let's do this again. And if you hold control down, it basically makes it then proportional. So there are the mechs, right? So that's kind of an army of these mechs kind of all running, but it's the same one. And that's fine for now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to arrange a few of these on here. So to do that, what I'm going to do is in the nanomesh menu, in the tool menu, I'm going to go ahead and populate this randomly. So there's a random number of these guys, and they're all running the same way, which is never the case. So I need to rotate them, and I think Z rotation is what I want. So there's the Z rotation. Notice it's rotating around Z. And how far off the ground are they? Let me turn perspective off here. And I think they're pretty good, just almost right on the ground, which is good. They need to be a little bit up higher than the ground because usually they're running. And now what I want to do here is with this rotation, let me turn perspective back on. With this rotation, I want a little bit of variation, right? So I'm going to do some Z variation so they're not all running the same way. So this just adds a little bit of randomness. So these are all kind of running together. And that's still a lot of them. I can reduce them down to a few of these guys, not that many. So they're all these guys running, right? So that's the first nanomesh that I inserted. Now I'm going to do the exact same thing again. Before I do that, let me do something else. That is, okay, so these are good. I like them. So in the nanomesh menu, I'm just going to go ahead and say inventory 1 to mesh. And what that's going to do is it's just going to paste these meshes down. Now, I'm going to use, so if I look at the geometry or under subtool here, you'll notice that it's all in one piece, and I don't want that. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to select this, Control-Shift-A, and split the hidden parts. So now I've got the mechs here in one subtool, and then there's the ground. And now I'm going to go ahead and do another insert nanomesh, but this time I'm going to choose a different one of these guys. So let's see here. This one is the one where it's like that. So here I'm going to choose this one, which is a little bit different. Okay. So same thing, draw it out, hold control. Oops. Maybe I should show these other ones. Turn solo off so I can kind of get the same scale. All right, so now I've got a bunch of these ones. Like so. Okay, so now I've got this one, right? Same kind of story where I don't really need that many of them. So what I'm going to do here is let's just make sure they are about the same height as the other ones. So again, I don't really need them to be that exact. If I held the control key down, it would be the same size, but I think it's good for now. And I go to geometry here and then bring this random number down so it is a different number. And notice here they're facing the other way, so I need to change their Z rotation so they're facing the same direction. Right, and some of them are overlapping, and I don't really care about that. And let's just do a little bit of Z variation here as well. So there is a little bit of a variation in them running. And then again, I like this 1 to mesh. That's done. Again, let me separate it out from the base. Split hidden. So now I have this as a separate subtool too, and to fix the overlapping, I just move this subtool over a little bit, and I can rotate it a little bit as well. And notice here the mechs aren't really the same size. These ones turned out a bit smaller, so I can just scale it up like so. And there are those ones like this, and they are running kind of together like so in the same direction. And they're different enough and similar enough where it is working. And then last but not least, another thing I can also do to this is add a little bit of variation. So to do that, let's just wait for the program to respond here. Good time for a tea break, and also maybe look at some of the questions. Looks like there's a bunch. Okay, let's see. All right, so and I can individually, like for example, this one right here is kind of overlapping. So what I could do here is just mask this one off. Like so, invert the mask, and just move this individual one to a different location, maybe to over here, right? So, I mean, I'm doing a lot of the work automatically, but there might be one or two that I need to manually adjust. Okay, let's look at the questions. All right, so Jim Mech is asking whether or not this is a concept. It is a concept. So it is a concept, and it's at the early stages. So last time we kind of have took care of the primary shape of the mech, and today what we're doing is we're looking at its feasibility kind of in a setting, right? So if I'm looking at creating kind of a scene where there's a bunch of these mechs fighting each other, what would an army of them look like running in a field? So I'm just using this nanomesh technology in ZBrush just to kind of lay them out. And of course, I'm putting all these on a ground that's flat, but I can also have a kind of a hill or have a little bit of a variation to this as well. As a matter of fact, why don't I do that with the third one just for kicks? I'm just going to duplicate this plane here and hide the first one. Let's hide these two. And if I want a little bit of variation here, I can just go ahead and choose, like, let's say the standard brush here. And let me choose a bigger brush size, like so. And I can just go in and create more of a varied terrain, like so, where it's kind of not flat. And the same exact thing works with it as well. Right, so here's kind of more of a, maybe some hills and valleys and whatnot, right? And then same thing, I go to this nanomesh brush, and let's make sure here, insert nanomesh, all polygons, that's good. And this time, let's choose this one, right? And we can just populate it. And you can see that the mechs are kind of reacting to that ground plane. All right, so there they are, and now just go to the nanomesh brush here again, or nanomesh menu, and then just do some random placement of a few of them like this. So you can kind of see that these are, I mean, this doesn't make sense. It wouldn't run down this thing. It would probably just jump over it. But this is the only one that's not looking right, and I can get rid of that specific one, or I can just randomize the seed to just kind of move them around to move them into different places. And there are other kind of alignment tools here too, like I can align them to normal, which doesn't really work. In this case, short edge doesn't work. So a lot of these don't work to a random edge. It changes their kind of orientation, so that's not going to work. So all these mechs look good from where I'm sitting, except maybe the ones that are going downwards, and I can always remove those after the fact. So that's good again. I like it. Go to inventory, one to mesh. So these are done as well. And then let's go ahead and separate out the mechs from the ground. So here, split hidden. And then let me just go to that last one. I think it's this one right here. And so the ones that I don't like this one right here, I can just hide it, and this one as well. Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. And for that, I'm basically just using the select brush. So it's the select rectangle brush, which is the default, but I'm holding Alt down. So basically here, let me do it. Okay, so select rectangle basically just selects whatever is in here. So now that one is selected. And then if you do this, if you extend out and then press Alt, it turns red. And that means it's going to hide, let me do this again. It's going to hide the ones you don't want. All right, so let's do this one more time from the start. So I don't want this guy and this guy. So I'm just going to kind of create a box, hold Alt, spacebar to move it. That's hidden. And then same thing here. And if I don't want those, I want them gone, I can always go down and say delete hidden. And now I'm just basically left with this. And once again, I can go ahead and, by turning polyframe off, get an idea of what these things would look like running maybe around on a hill. So if I have kind of, I have a scene where a lot of these are going to be attacking another group, I can do this composition just by using the simple technique. And again, I don't really need to get into detail on the mech. So like if I see that somehow something is not working with this, then I can make that change. And also, it's simple enough where I created these mechs over here to create the nanomesh brush. It's simple enough to, I guess it's not this one. Is it this one? Yeah. It's simple enough to go into each one of these and maybe rotate the top part. So again, since this is all one piece here, I'm just going to go ahead and do this, mask this part, like so. And then I can rotate the top part of the mech to create a little bit more variation if I need to. So if it's running and maybe pointing in a different direction, I could do that as well, right? So again, this is all kind of doing some previs, doing some concept design of not just the mech itself, but also what it would look like if it was in an environment with a bunch of them running around and on a terrain and just kind of getting an idea of that as a composition. Looking at the silhouette, how does it look like in a silhouette? Does it work out and whatnot? And it's always good to do these kinds of things early on because if you make the mech and finish it, then what happens is that it might not look right when you put it in a composition. So it's always good to kind of do these studies and present them with your concept when you first start out. All right, so got a bunch of more questions here. So this is, I'm not going to be sculpting on these variants, right? So I think Jim Mech is asking, we keep things we keep things symmetric when we sculpt, and then we break symmetry, and that's right. Although I know a lot of sculptors that break symmetry early too, so it depends. But yeah, we're going to be doing most of the symmetrical work with it, and it's by a pose or bind pose like this, and then once we're happy with it, we will change things around, right? What I did over here is just for visualization. Like I'm not going to sculpt on any of these mechs, right? This is just to kind of create a quick and dirty look of what they would look like running. Like another thing also is like, let's say I'm doing a comic book or something like that. I can very easily just go in here and render these with one of the, here, let's just do a BPR render real quick. And I can render these with one of the presets here under the BPR render pass. So, BPR filters, right? And just go pick one of these filters. Let's say this one right here. I don't know what's going on in the background. I can't see it. Let me move this up. BPR. Okay, so now you can kind of see what it would look like in a kind of a toon shaded type of scenario. So if I were illustrating, let's say this in a comic book or in an illustrated novel or something like that, I can very easily just go in here and generate that. I don't really need all the detail on the mech. I can very easily kind of do this kind of stuff. Just to get that type of look for it. And let's see if there's any other interesting ones just to try them out. Let's try this one, which is a newer one. Right, and so again, this is kind of doing a very quick and dirty way of doing previs before we get into the detail sculpting later on. Okay, so this one here is kind of more of a pixelated look, and I can adjust the pixels to be smaller or bigger. So if I was doing, like, let's say a pixelated game, I could do it that way. Here's another filter, and you can just jump through these filters very easily. You don't have to re-render it every single time. That's what it would look like as an oil painting, for example, and whatnot. So there's a bunch of these filters, and they're all really cool. And so you can use this for illustrative purposes as well as for concept design. All right, so let's switch back to normal here and close Lightbox down. So hopefully that answers that question. A bunch of other questions came in. Let's take a look at those. Most time before school. Okay. Cool. Hello, Heron. How's it going? And yeah, that's right. Sinak was mentioning that I could mirror some of them. So, you know, here in all of these ones, the right foot looks normal, but you can always go into this group right here where I had the 3 original mechs. Like here they are. And I can just duplicate one of these guys. It's a good suggestion, right? And then I can just go in here and just mirror it to the other side. So, oops. I did mirror and weld by accident. Okay, so now I've got, right, so I've got this one that's running this way, right? And then I've got this one that's running the other way here. I think solo might help this, right? So there's this and then there's this, right? And if you go back and forth between these two, let's see, which ones did I mirror? Did I mirror the first one? No, this one and this one, right? So these are opposite of each other, right? So if I do this real quick, I can also kind of get a sense of, you know, what it would look like if it was running. Of course, the in-betweens are kind of, you can do the in-betweens as well. But yeah, that's a good suggestion that you could mirror it as well. Right. Yeah, you can do all sorts of stuff, and you can do some very, very cool kind of compositions. Again, this is very low poly. It doesn't have to be very sophisticated, but you can get some good dioramas very quickly, and you can get some angles. Like, what would it look like if you were, like, you know, standing? Let's bring up one of these solo this. Like, what if you were standing here? What would that look like, right? And then you can just do a quick render. I don't know what just happened here. Let's just do this. And just zoom in, so you can kind of be in between them as well and kind of get an idea. You know, you can place your camera anywhere you want and just get some ideas of how these would look like. What if they, you know, they were kind of like coming like this, and you can just, you know, get some really good angles, some really good ideas, and create some concept design stills that you can do from this early stage to get an idea of what that scene would look like. Again, you don't really need to go into any detail here. Even though we're going to detail out one of the mechs, we don't need to do it for all of them. Okay. So Avi is asking if there are any filters for comics, and there are. Okay, and Boom, I'm just going to say Boom. Boom wants me to know how I made the nanomesh, insert mesh, and create a nanomesh again. I'll do that again too, no worries. Okay, so here, the first thing is the filters for comics, right? So if you go under, and let me just go to the original mech, because, or let me go to the pilot, because that might be even a better way to show it. So here we have this mech pilot right here, and suppose I want to do a cartoon toon shaded version of him, right? So if I just do a regular BPR render, it comes out like this with the shadow and everything. Let me move the light over this way. Let's get more interesting shadow going here. So there it is, right? So this is kind of what it looks like, kind of more computery. But if I want this to be a toon shaded thing, and again, this is not in any way, shape, or form finished. It's really early stages of sculpting on this guy. That's why I see these boxy kind of packs and whatnot. Each one of these will get detailed later on. But if I were to do this BPR render on this, I can just go to Lightbox Filter. And notice that there are some toon shaded ones here already, right? So like this one looks like it's toon shaded. Let's do this one. All right, so maybe, you know, to make this clearer, I should move this up here like so you can see it. Let's do the BPR render one more time. So there's that. It's kind of toon shaded, right? And if you want to change these colors, you can. Let me do one more. I like this one a lot. So this is also toon shaded. So there's a toon shaded guy right there. You see these jagged edges here, but you can fix all that, right? You can do some things to fix it. So let's say we're going to start with this right here, and this is going to be our toon shaded guy. And so now I've just basically used this filter right out of the box, just like this one. Let's try one more just to see if we can get anything better. Looks like that was the best one. So we're going to stick with this guy. right? And these happen pretty fast because it's not doing the render every single time. So I can go back and forth between all these very quickly. So here's this one right here. Again, coming back to this one, that's working the best. Okay, so now that I've got this, I can come over here, and these are all the filters with the circles open. So there's 12 filters. The ones with the ones open are what filters that are being used, right? So if I want to blur these so I don't get the jaggies, I can just go here to this filter, turn it on, and then here's all the different filters that you have. So if you click on it, and I'm going to choose blur. So now this adds a blur level to it, and I can choose how much of it I want blurred, right? So that you can see here that as I go up higher, I'm getting more of a blurred image. And then if I go up lower, so I can kind of figure out one that works for me. Now the other thing here is that this one is, the first one is the flat shading, which is giving it this toon look. And the two colors it's using are black and green. Maybe I don't like this green. I can go in and pick any color I want. Maybe I can go for maybe that kind of a color. And by the way, this object that I have does not have polypaint. If it did have polypaint, I could have used that as well. Right, so there is that toon shaded version of this guy, right? And so that's good. And then if I want him to be in another scene like this, right? So here's another version of it, just BPR. It'll have that same shading. And then maybe I have a close-up of his head, like so. BPR that. So, you can get a little bit better results if you, of course, this is kind of decimated, so a lot of the details are gone, but the original version would get a much, better, like if it's at this scale, I think I'm getting enough detail here where I don't really need to sculpt more. I can just take this into Photoshop or Clip Studio Paint or something like that and just add to it after the fact, right? And then just as easy, just add another guy, right? So here I'm just going to use Control, drag, and now there's two of them. Right, so like that, and just as easily as doing that, now I can have both of them rendered at the same time. And the question was also, how do I create a nanomesh brush? So suppose I want to create a bunch of these guys. So I have these two pilots. One of them is sitting down, the other one's standing up, and I want to create a nanomesh brush that has both of these in there. So the first thing I do is I go to the brush menu, and this is answering the other question. And just go ahead and create an insert mesh with one of them, right? Or create insert multi-mesh. So create insert multi-mesh will create a brush that has all of these in there, right? So if I click on create insert multi-mesh, now I have a brush that has these two guys in it, right? So here they are, 1, 2. And if I go back to the one with the plane here, I'm just going to use that same kind of plane that I had before, right? I'm going to hide all these mechs. So now if I choose the guy that's standing, I can just go ahead and click this. So the insert mesh brush will insert the guy the way it's facing, the way it got it, right? So I kind of did a mistake here where I actually did the multi-mesh brush with them facing forward. What I want is I want them to be facing downward, so it inserts them that way. So I'm going to do the same thing again, insert multi-mesh brush, easy enough, did it, done. And now I have these two guys. I go back to my plane here, and when I place the guy, it will place him down correctly, right? So notice here he's above the ground, and I can fix that with just choosing this embed. And the embed is in brush as well. It's in the brush menu. So it's in the brush menu, and it is, where is it? It is in, I think it has its own depth maybe. Yeah, depth. Here we go, depth, and there it is. So I've basically put it on my UI because I use it a lot. And now if I draw a guy out, now he's kind of too deep into the plane. So I can just adjust this to where he is going to be a little bit higher maybe. That looks about right. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and undo all these guys. Right before I added this plane, turn polyframe on, perspective on. So there's the guy right there. And then if I want to put the sitting person, I choose the sitting person, and there is the sitting person. Right? So I can just kind of place them that way. Now that's how you do the insert mesh brush. Now to do the nano mesh brush, it's just another step. You choose your insert mesh brush. So I've got this chosen. You go to create, and you say create nanomesh brush, and that will actually create this nanomesh brush. And these can be saved, by the way. So just go to the brush menu and save them, and then you can use them later on. So now if I want to populate my scene with a bunch of these standing up pilots, I can just choose that one, right, as a nanomesh brush. Go to insert nanomesh, single poly or all polygons. Let's do that. And then I can just draw them out, and there's a bunch of them like so. I think the depth is kind of still not doing what I want it to do, but in this case I'm going to leave this be for now, and I'm going to go down here to the nanomesh menu, and what I'm going to do is do that same thing where I'm just going to randomly scatter these around like so. This many people is fine. And then again, I'm just going to do the Z rotation variation, so they're kind of pointing in different directions, like so. It's too many. I'm going to make them less. Okay. Right, so there's these guys, and if I'm happy with it, I'll do one to mesh. So now it's going to become a mesh, and then select this, like so. Split the hidden parts. And now instead of adjusting the height, what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to go ahead and take that plane and these guys, and I can just move the plane down. So they are on the ground like so. And if I like this, and again, of course, I can individually rotate them as well. And if I like this, I can just go to something like that maybe and do a BPR render and get the tune shaded versions of all these guys. And again, all this stuff happens really fast, and you know, if you're doing a anime or comic book or something like that, you know, to draw each one of these guys out, it's going to take a long time, but you can use this method to get them to all be in your scene in one shot. And yeah, so kind of a, you know, one of the many uses of ZBrush as a kind of illustration tool. Okay, so cool. Right, so hopefully that tells you how you do the nanomesh brush, and yeah. All right, let's see other questions. Right. Okay, good. So we have that down. Now I'm just going to get rid of these things because we don't need them anymore. So I don't need these soldiers. I'm going to delete the subtool. Let me bring this subtool number down to maybe about 8. And I don't need that anymore. I need the plane. I have this plane as well. And then there are the mechs. So again, that's just another kind of tool in my arsenal of stuff to use when I'm designing my mech. Okay, so it's always good to kind of look at ambulation. It's always good to look at composition of multiple of them, if there are going to be many of them. And then once you're happy with that, you can go ahead and you know, continue your design forward, which is what we're going to do next. All right, so we're doing good on time. We have about 45 minutes left. And in that 45 minutes, we're going to start working a little bit on the you know, secondary forms. So, you know, the hull is always a good one to start with, but since we've got, you know, the hull is going to take a while, maybe we'll do that all next time. Let's go ahead and start working on the legs. So here is the leg like this. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to split this. Let's duplicate it first, move the first one into builders so we have a copy of it. So builders is just a folder that has all the different pieces that I'm working on. And now I'm going to do something to this. So I have a duplicate in here. So here what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and split this to similar parts, which is going to be a little bit difficult, I think. So I'm going to actually manually do that. I'm going to turn perspective off, and I'm going to do this, Control-Shift-A, split hidden. Right, so that basically just separated out this part of the leg, and this is the part I want to work on. And notice here that I do have symmetry on, which is good. And now what I want to do is I want to go ahead and refine this a little bit further, right? And all this is basically just a cube, right? It's just a simple cube. So now to add subdivisions to it, I'm going to go ahead. First of all, let me make sure that this cube is the way I want it to be. So I want it to be flat. Maybe, I mean, I kind of like these angles. They're still kind of like this angle, angled a bit. It's creating some visual interest. So let me solo this out. And I'm going to look at this as an individual part. Okay, so the angled look is interesting, but maybe I don't want that angle to be there. And maybe I don't want this to be there. So I'm just kind of manipulating the cube for a starting point for that top kind of thigh part of the leg of the mech. Okay, so that's good. Make these bottom parts a little bit bigger. All right, let's bring everybody back. Let's see if that kind of changed it a lot. So that's good. And now let's go ahead and start adding some detail. So the first thing I usually do is add an edge loop going this way and an edge loop going this way. Of course, I could have just subdivided it, but that's fine. And then maybe add one here. Oops. I think I don't want to be inserting nanomeshes anymore, so I'm going to go to do nothing for polygon for now. Okay, actually, I do want to do one thing here. I'm going to go ahead and go to QMesh, single poly, and that's good. So now I'm going to go ahead and see if I want to move these parts. So again, I'm using a lot of different things at this point to move things around. I like using the gizmo a lot, so I'm just going to move these points out like this to get a little bit of a rotational part here, because this part's going to rotate. So eventually I'll probably just pop in like a cylindrical piece on top of this, but I just want to get a rough idea of what that shape is. And I like this being straight like this, but you know, if I want to see what it would look like if it's bent a little bit, I can just go back to the move brush and see, does a bend help? And it does not. It looks a lot better just straight. Okay, and now I can think about, okay, well, there's going to be, you know, this is probably from a machining perspective, this is going to be probably one of the most thickest pieces. Let me get a tea break here. All right, so now what we're going to do is, you know, I'm going to imagine that there's like this piece is going to be really kind of metal. It's going to be heavy. There's going to be a lot of metal in there because it's kind of a structural piece. So I'm going to approach it with that angle. And what I want to do here is add maybe a couple more subtools or edge loops here. And let me go to solo. And now what I want to do is maybe bevel some of these areas. So I'm going to bevel just an edge. Okay, let's see if this does it. I don't want to go all the way around though. I just want this specific one here. Maybe bevel is not the thing. Let's try see what split does. Yeah, no, split isn't doing it either. What was the thing that gave me that? QMesh? Yeah, this kind of gives me this type of thing if I want it, but for now, I don't think that's what I want. So QMesh isn't going to do it. Was it extrude? What was it? Let's try extruding an edge. Nope, that's not it either. There is, I think it should be bevel, but I don't think it's doing what I want it to do. I mean, bevel works. Let's try beveling it first. That's a good idea. Let's see if that works. Somebody said mask the rest so they don't bevel, and then just bevel the one you want. Let's see if that works. Yep, that did it. That's exactly what I wanted to do. So yeah. So I'm just going to mask these and just bevel this. right? So I kind of want them to go in over this way, but not that way. And maybe I'm going to go to mask lasso here. Maybe I'm going to try doing this, see what that does. Oh, look at that. How cool is that? All right, so that's looking. So now I'm automatically getting like a really kind of cool shape generated. And let's undo this. Let's do that. Add a little bit of a bevel here. That's not going to work. All right, so that kind of, let's see what this looks like with everybody else. I think that's looking okay. I like that a lot. It's looking very kind of sleek. And let's do this inner part like so. All right, so now that's kind of giving me a little bit more defined shape. I'm getting more into the secondary shapes, which I like. And again, probably there's going to be some sort of a cylindrical joint here, so I'm not going to worry about that too much. But I'm just kind of looking at this. Now, another idea that I had was to see if I can add a bend this way. Is that going to help? Or this way? Nope. Again, it looks better just straight. What about if I bend the outside or the inside? Oh, that kind of looks interesting. All right, I'll keep that. So this part is going to be a little bit straighter and then just kind of veers out over to here. Again, notice how low poly this whole thing is, right? And I want to keep it that way. I definitely want to keep it that way because I don't want to be doing a lot of work that's fast. I don't really have to have a super duper computer to do this thing that I'm doing. You can do it with pretty much any computer that'll run ZBrush. It can handle this just fine. So here we go. All right. No questions. Can continue on. Good. All right. So there's that leg. Let's move on to the next one. Okay. So I'm going to do the same trick here. Where I'm just going to mask, select these two, Control Shift A to get that, and split the hidden parts. Right, so now I've got this part of the leg that I can work on. And I'm going to do the same thing here. And by the way, this is really not a prescribed thing. The methodology, sometimes I might do this exact same thing a little bit different. So there's no reason to do it all the same. Another option that I had here, another idea that I had, I'll do that now, is I wanted to see what this would look like if I Q-mesh this out like so, and have, maybe not that long, but just have a little bit of a thing like that happening. That's kind of an interesting look too, where the leg is kind of sticking out in the back. And it's not flush. Let me go back to clip curve, put this down like so, do that. All right, so now I'm basically just, again, adjusting this, oops. I'm going to mask these bottom parts because I don't want to mess with them, and just see if I can do this. Nope. There we go. Right. And so now I'm just basically kind of, again, just by manipulating this cube, getting the basic shape down of this leg. That looks good. Now let's just add one level of detail. Insert edge loop, put one in the middle here, and let's put one over here this way. Okay, and same thing as before. Let's see if I can add a little bit of a bend to this. Makes it look any better. Bend inwards. Bend inwards looks a little bit better. I think that'll work. Right, like so. Let's see if I can add a bend this way as well. I kind of like this little bit of a bend so it's not as stiff. That's looking good. All right, so let's just make some minor adjustments here. So, where are you guys all from? What countries are you joining me from? Is everybody, I usually get some people from, of course I get some people from the US, but I get some people from Canada. I get some people from Australia, New Zealand. Where are you all from? Hong Kong. All right, Avi. Always wanted to go. One day I will. It's on my list. You guys are having a little bit of trouble there now, but hopefully it'll be back to normal once this COVID thing is done and things get a little bit more stable. Phoenix. All right, we got a person from Phoenix, Arizona. And Connecticut. Cool. Where in Connecticut are you? Sinak. Magnolia. Where's Magnolia? Oh, we got somebody from Pakistan. Wow. All right. So we got 3 continents so far. For some of you, I realize this is late, so thank you for joining me when it's late or maybe too early in the morning. All right, so that's kind of again I'm liking this. So again, notice how much time I'm spending here. All this time spent here is good time spent. It really isn't. I can't stress that enough. Get your primary shapes to work, and the rest of it will come together when you are putting in the details. All right, so that's good. Let's move this up. And I'm just using the gizmo to orient this a little bit better as the whole thing. And that's looking good. I don't know if I like this bend as much now. So let's bend this back a little bit. All right, so Mansfield, Connecticut. Okay, cool. I have family in Greenwich. Haven't been there for a while, but lovely state. All right. Amhad is asking about keeping the low poly while sculpting. Wow, Algeria. Holy crap. Okay, it's 5 a.m. Wow. It's great that you're up at 5 a.m., man. I can't remember the last time I was up at 5 a.m. All right, so the thing here is that the person was asking, sculpting in low poly. So sculpting in low poly is just like sculpting in high poly. It's just less polygons. And this is more like modeling, but it's kind of sculpting modeling. And I kind of have a name for it called poly sculpting, which is going to be the name of my book. So yeah, I'm basically sculpting the polygons in a very low poly mode. And for that, I'm basically just getting this overall look to work. And then once I'm happy with it, now I can go in and do some things, add a little bit more detail. By the way, another thing I highly recommend you do is save these steps so you can go back and forth. So when you go to File here, under Save, make sure you check undo history so that when you save it, you can go back to an original thing. So like for example, for this thigh part here, if I don't like this detail, I want to go back to my earlier shape. If I save the undo steps, I can do that. And every once in a while, I purge them and start over, but now it's a good time to do that. Now let's do that bevel again for the edge. So edge and bevel. There it is, and we're going to do, see if edge loop partial does it. Yep, that's what I needed to do before. So here's that, and here's this. So we'll do that on both parts this way. Same thing here. And let's see if this works. And I'm going to keep this one the way it is for now. All right, and now that I've got this, I can do a little bit more adjusting. Maybe do that. And notice here, just to kind of explain my point, since I've got to do this 3 times. Whereas before, when I had it in lower poly mode, I had to do it only just once or twice, right? So the more detail you add, the more steps it is. So do as much as you can with low detail as possible, and then you can move it forward. Okay, some questions. Oh, I got person in Mexico, so that's another. Well, here's Central America, so that's good. Montreal, Canada. I always have somebody from Canada. I am sculpting with a tablet. I just have to mention that I am using a tablet. I'm using a Wacom, kind of a medium Intuos, one of these guys. Here, I'll hold it up so you can see it. One of these guys right here. And I highly recommend you use a tablet with ZBrush. You don't need to get a really expensive Cintiq. If you can afford it, Cintiq, people love it. And if you can't, a tablet works just fine. As a matter of fact, personally, I would rather work on a tablet because I kind of don't have my hand on the, on the screen, so I can look at the screen. I have no problems working that way. But since I teach, I know a lot of my students, they couldn't do a lot of this stuff if they didn't have a Cintiq. So, it depends. But at least have a Cintiq. But I can do this kind of stuff I can do with a mouse too. So now I just basically switch to the mouse. I can do it with a mouse as well. So you can do it with a mouse, but as you get more and more detailed with your sculpt, it helps when you have a tablet. I like Cintiq tablets. Wacom tablets. I've been using them for a very long time, and I really enjoy working with them a lot. So when I work in the field, I've got a tablet, a Mobile Studio Pro, which is basically it's a Wacom tablet and a screen. It's kind of like a portable Cintiq, but it's also a computer. So a lot of times when I go into a shop, for example, that doesn't have a computer for me, I can just use that device. And sometimes I need to do that. They don't have computers for me, so I just use that when I'm on site. Since COVID, though, I've just been working at home. Right, so now I think this looks pretty good. So you can kind of see here I've got a secondary level of detail on those, so I can start moving down to these parts. Split hidden. Now I've got this part right here, and I can work on that part as well. All right, how are we doing on time? Okay, good. We've got plenty of time to go still, which is awesome. And let's see. To your no, I mean, you can this method is one that I use. Poly sculpting is a method that I use, and I do low poly sculpting. Some artists do that as well. I don't want to say it's exclusive to me, but I think I think a lot of artists, kind of artists that come from a sculpting background, usually they just start with a sphere and then they create something really elaborate with just a sphere. Personally, I can do that. I do organic sculpting as well, but I like to kind of start out the shapes, with the primary shapes, get those working, get to the secondary shapes and tertiary shapes, and also when I'm working with low poly, models, I'm not using a lot of polygons. I'm not taxing the system as much, so it happens a lot faster, and I like that as well. Right, so I'm just going to do a little bit of a bend here to this. So I don't know if that worked for me. Let's see if I can just do this and that. So basically, if you really think about it anatomically, this is the foot and these are kind of the toes. So trying to get them to be, maybe curve it downwards, see if that works better. It does. Right, so there's that. I'm not using ZModel. I'm just basically using the Move brush. It's just like my go-to brush. So in my UI, I've got hotkeys. One is the Move ZModeler, and two is Move. So right now, I'm only using these two brushes. I'm not using anything else. Right, so if you click on the brush menu here, there's 100 some brushes that ZBrush has, but for the most part, the ones that I use most of the time, specifically at this stage, are the Move brush and the ZModeler brush. So right now, I'm just using the Move brush. You can see it here, and then when I switch to ZModeler, you can see that change over here as well. Right, so this is good for this part. Now, this front part here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make 3 copies of them. So here's one copy this way, and here's another copy this way. And the reason why I'm doing that is because, well, actually, the reason why I'm doing that is because these are going to be on the floor, so they're going to have kind of, excuse me, they're going to be like feet. They're going to be planted down, so I need to create multiples of them. Excuse me. And so I'm going to do that this way, and here I'm just going to split the mask parts off. Right. So notice that I'm not really going and fishing in menus to find all this stuff. I have it all in my UI, and just created a kind of a custom menu to do that. So here, all these different menus that I have, the ones that start with Z and AK are my menus, and I just basically populate it with stuff I use all the time, and I map it to a hotkey. So I'm not going back and forth and scrolling and doing that. I can work a lot faster. I've got one that basically has all the brushes I use. And I just want to do a shout out here to these brushes are the Nash brushes, are from an artist called Mike Nash. And he recently passed away, which is devastating to the community and to me as well. He's been there from the start. He's really an amazing artist. So, and you can see here that I've got his brushes that I purchased on Gumroad. I use them right here. I use them all the time. And just hearing that he'd passed away was really very, very devastating for me. So anyway, going back to the topic here, I've got the brushes that I use all the time. Here, and then I've got symmetry that I use all the time as well, mirroring and splitting, merging. So most of the stuff that I use in the menus are here, and I usually work on a bigger screen, so all this shows up at once. I don't have to scroll this menu at all. So lazy mouse is here, all that stuff is here. I've got another one that I have for dividing, ZModeler, Dynamesh, and edge loops. So with just these few menus, I can just do everything I need to do and not be fishing around in menus on the side. So it really helps, right? When you have something like that, it really makes your workflow go a little bit faster. So here, I just want to split the mask parts again. And so now there are these 3 kind of feet over here, starting to look like a chicken. Right, so let's go ahead and go to the middle one here and work on it. Now again, these are going to be independent, and usually the one on the left and the right are going to be the same, but for now I'm just going to try and see what they would look like if they were different. So I'm going to hide these other 2 and just work on that middle one. All right, couple of questions here. Let's take a quick look at that while I have a swig of tea. All right. Yeah, Sinak, you're right. Absolutely. You know, people use ZBrush for all sorts of different things and use them in different ways. I mean, just if you go to the streams here, it's kind of really interesting to see. I'll just bring that up. If you just go to ZBrushLive.com, and you know, there are all these streamers, right? And each one of them, each presenter, each stream is different, right? So you know, you look at some people like Paul does hard surface stuff, and then there are people that do these kind of stylistic, cartoony, stylized characters. Pablo's all over the place. He does all sorts of stuff. You know, some people do anime-looking characters, and as you know, as you go down this list, you know, there's all sorts. And there's jewelry, like Thomas does jewelry design. Thomas. So there's all these different artists, and they use ZBrush for all sorts of different reasons. So, you know, if you're interested, just go to ZBrush Live, and you can look at this stuff. Here's me kind of going to infinity. Also on their YouTube channel, if you're on YouTube, you can see those videos too. So you can see here, there's quite a few different styles that people use for these videos. So for ZBrush, some people do creatures, characters, all sorts of stuff. So it's basically like a pencil and paper if you really think about it. It's the artist that brings the most out of it, and there's quite a prolific bunch of artists that work in ZBrush. All doing amazing stuff, and it's always interesting to see what people do. And you know, I borrow stuff from all of them. You know, sometimes I look at people that do character models and incorporate some of their techniques into what I do. I look at the jewelry design designers and incorporate some of their stuff, game designers and whatnot. So it's always good to borrow from other artists and use their methodologies if it works with your stuff, but it's always good to have your own unique style and maybe your specific expertise. All right, so there's that, and then okay, so these brushes, you mean these brushes right here? Is that the one? Are these the ones you're talking about, Heron Moeller, or are you talking about the ones I've been using? So, you know, most of the brushes you need come with ZBrush. The majority of them come with ZBrush. So, you know, if you just get ZBrush, the brushes that come with it, there's quite a few that come in here just normally. And also, if you go to Lightbox and go to Brush, there's a bunch more in there as well. So you get like, you know, I don't know exact number, but you get a lot of brushes just with ZBrush on itself. By itself. And then you can buy other brushes online too. I mean, there's people that sell all sorts of brushes for it. So you can make your own, and sell it. So it's like a big ecosystem of brushes. And the brushes really aren't like Photoshop brushes. I guess they could be if you count all the photo bashing stuff, but they're basically also geometry, right? So you basically get geometry as well as some of the other things that brushes do. And there's all sorts of brushes. There's insert mesh brushes, there's insert curve brushes. So the brush ecosystem for ZBrush is huge. And another thing to mention also is that the brush system in ZBrush is so flexible that you can do all that stuff. So I really, you know, I love working with the brushes. And then, of course, you can get more. The one I was talking about, maybe you were asking about this one, the Mike Nash brushes. He sells these, or he used to sell them. I don't know who's taken over now, but these were available on Gumroad, so you can get them on Gumroad. So somebody was asking me where my ArtStation was. So yeah, yeah. Rest in peace, Mike is right. He was really, you know, he was really one of the guys that had been there from the start, and I really, you know, it really kind of broke my heart when I heard that he's no longer with us. So, but his art will live on, I guess. And the thing I also wanted to talk about is, you know, my ArtStation. So the best thing to remember for everything that I do is really my website, which is kermaco.com, kermaco.com. So if you go to that website, It has all of my social media here, as well as my ArtStation. So if you don't remember where my ArtStation is, or if you don't want to spell out my name, if you just remember Kermaco, Kermaco, and go to kermaco.com, which is my website, which I am moving to ArtStation, by the way. Eventually I will. If you click on ArtStation, that will take me to my ArtStation, and these are my ArtStation works. Let me make this a bit smaller. Right, so I basically have a few projects. I've got a spinner, and again, this is all stuff I need to update and with new work. So that's my ArtStation. So it's just, again, it's artstation.com/Kermaco. But my newer stuff, the stuff that I post, my most recent stuff, is on Instagram right now. So if you go to my Instagram, for example, here's a couple of new things that I did. These were tires that I'm making. I'm making a tire kit for Gumroad. So Gumroad and ArtStation. So this will be out soon as well. I'm working on these tires, kind of more sci-fi-ish, futuristic tires. But I also worked on a few cars here. These are recent designs that I did for kind of spinners and other types of cars and whatnot. And so Instagram, again, has more of my recent stuff. So you can just go to my Instagram and see all of them there. And again, my Instagram is instagram.com/Kermaco. So again, pretty simple to remember. But if you just remember to go to kermaco.com, I think you'll be set. You'll be able to do all the stuff. And 99% of what's here is ZBrush. So all these things are ZBrush. Here's an example of a tune, kind of a thing that I did earlier. I was talking about that. So there's that. Kind of did a COVID nurse or COVID kind of... when COVID started, I kind of did this. Here's 3D printed stuff. So I made this drone in ZBrush. Here it is 3D printed. So yeah, quite a few ZBrush projects going. All right, so we got about 10 minutes. Anas, thank you very much. Let's see here. Okay, so let's go ahead and continue on. So here I'm just working on this foot. We didn't really detail this guy out, so let's go ahead and do that. So I added one edge loop there. I don't know if let's add another edge loop to it. So again, I'm switching to the ZModeler brush, adding one edge loop over here. And let's add one this way. And let's add a couple here. Like so. And let me take a look at this and see if I do a Q-mesh, if that's going to add something to it. So we'll just do a couple of out extrusions or Q-meshes like this. And then let's do one like that and one like that. And see if this kind of adds to that, look a little bit more. So here I'm just basically adding geometry by using Q-mesh in ZModeler. And again, keeping this low poly as I can. Symmetry is working for me, so I can see what's happening on both sides. Going back to the move brush here, just adjusting this to be this way. And again, I'm just going to look at the silhouette to see if that, yeah, this adds a lot to it, so I'm glad I did that. So this is cool. And this inner part is going in a little bit too much, so fix that. Right. So yeah, a lot can be done in low res. You don't have to have millions of polygons to get interesting shapes. If it works simple, it works complex. All right. Okay, cool. Yep. You can do logos in ZBrush too. By the way, I don't know if you know that, but it has a really cool text capability as well. Maybe we'll use that later on in the in the stream. Okay, so right, so this is starting to look kind of flushed out in secondary shapes. So let's move on to this toe. Again, same process, same exact way to do it. So next time we'll probably be working on the hull, which is this part, and we'll work on the arms. We'll get those done next time. So it's going to be more of the same, more or less, but with a, these are kind of stringy shapes, and that's probably going to be more like, big general shape that we're going to work on. So here I'm kind of looking at what these will be, and you need some chunky feet to, it's basically these feet are carrying this entire mech, so you need them to be a little bit chunkier. So I'm trying to get them to be a little bit bigger. And notice here that I added that edge loop, so it's giving me a little bit more complication. So I'm going to delete it. I'm going backwards here just so I don't have to move as many points. And by the way, I hope you're noticing how fast I'm switching back and forth between the move brush and the Z-modeler brush. That's because I've got them mapped to hotkeys as well. All right, so that's looking good, like so. And of course, we got to remember that we have those other toes as well, which we might or might not use. We haven't decided yet. Okay, again, just let's keep this pretty simple. All right, so that's looking good as well. I don't need to add much more detail to this. So I think I'm basically going to, by the way, another neat trick is if you want things to be flat on the ground, what you can do is you can use the clip curve brush and just do this, lift it up, place it there, and now all those 4 vertices are on the same plane, so that makes things easier. And so the legs are looking pretty good here. We can start moving on to the kind of the hull, which we'll do next time, and we'll also do maybe the arms, and then maybe we'll do the guns in their own session. We'll see how much we can get done in the next stream. Okay, so we're pretty much almost out of time. At this point, I'll just see if there's any last-minute questions, and then we can go to kind of adjourn until the Friday after next. So we haven't really determined the dates yet, but there'll probably be, next Friday I probably won't have it, and then the Friday after I will. Okay, I'm going to do another trick here. I'm going to introduce a third brush, which is the inflate brush. And the inflate brush is good to kind of maybe, inflate parts a little bit like this as well. So here, this was looking a little bit too flat. So here, I'm just inflating this out a little bit, like so. Okay. All right. Seeing the tires. Yeah, the tires, class project we had to do, Lightwave. Okay, a Lego kit. I'm sorry, I completely misread that, Heron. I'm sorry. Yeah, the tires that you were mentioning, these guys. Yeah, this is all, it's interesting that this is all very simple geometry as well, and I'm using the radial symmetry in ZBrush to get all these parts again to happen pretty quickly. So yeah. Sorry, I misread that before. Okay, so anyway, that kind of brings us to the end of this one. Thanks again for watching, and happy ZBrushing. Just keep at it and share your work. I'm trying to see if I can get some sort of a some sort of a page where we can all kind of create a community. So maybe create like a some sort of a Discord page or something like that. So I'm looking into that as well, so that we can have some continuity with some of the folks that watch the streams. All right, so with that, I bid you all a good night, or a good day, or a good morning, or a good 5 a.m., or whatever time you're in. Stay safe, wear a mask. We're almost done with this thing with the vaccine coming in. So have a good time ZBrushing, and we will see you again soon.